Happy Tax Day to everybody. I hope we got that all sorted out with that on our April 15th. I'm Corey Feraldi. I am the Director of Career Services, and I'm excited today for our panel that is going to talk a little bit about liberal arts and the world of work with that. This is kind of, this has been a partnership between Career Services and the College of Humanities and Social Sciences to promote the liberal arts education and the skills they bring for the world of work. Now, the last couple springs, we have had panels, we've had alumni panels who've had different careers, liberal arts majors who have talked about their careers out there. This time we're going to flip it around a little bit, and we've got our employers who are ready to talk a little bit about liberal arts and what that brings to the workforce. So I'll be excited to hear what they have to say about those areas with that. As we always do with one of these panels, we start off with a few words from our Dean of the Humanities and Social Sciences. So Dr. Forrest Anderson, I am going to turn it over to you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you all for being here. So Corey asked me to write a little introduction to this, and I ended up actually writing a confession, so I'm going to confess to you guys. So every day at USC Aiken, I'll talk to students or families who are skeptical, genuinely, reasonably skeptical about the value of a liberal arts education. And I get it, I do. College is expensive. The stakes are high. When you're the first person in your family to go to college, when you're working 2 jobs to pay for it, you want to know, how is this going to pay off? So you hear the question a lot probably, what are you going to do with that degree? And here's what I've come to believe. That question has never had a better answer than right now. I want you to look around at what's happening out there in the workforce. Entry-level software jobs are being automated away. Biology graduates, I'm not ditching on anybody, but biology graduates, 4 years of hard work, well, they're landing positions at $12 and $14 an hour. Right? The Los Angeles Times just recently reported that only 28% of STEM graduates are actually working in STEM. They're leaving for better pay. And here's the fun part. It's often the liberal arts majors whose salaries increase over time, right, who have the higher pay. So meanwhile, the skills that artificial intelligence can't replicate, judgment, adaptability, the ability to communicate when it's hard, to lead when there's no playbook, those are going up in value. And those are the skills we build every single day in the College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences. Now, the folks you're about to hear from today, thank you again for being here, they've seen this firsthand. They've hired our graduates into HR, banking, nuclear security, healthcare. They've watched these graduates do something. They've watched our graduates grow. They've watched our graduates adapt, and they've seen them move up in their careers. And that's not an accident. That's a liberal arts education doing exactly what it's supposed to do. So my ask for you today is pretty simple. I want you to listen today, not just what they hire, but why they keep hiring liberal arts majors. And ask them some good questions. I'm sure they'll have some answers, right? They're genuinely interested in you, and they want to help you turn your degree not just into your first job or your second job, but into an entire career. So enjoy, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. I think one of the things you will note with the panel today is when liberal arts tend to think of where they end up. We've got a group of organizations that liberal arts may not tend to think a lot about when they do that. We've got banking, we've got insurance, we've got manufacturing areas in our energy sector, and we've got out at the site a couple of organizations from Savannah Riverside in there. And so that a lot of times isn't the first place students will tend to think if they're a liberal arts graduate. So panelists, I very much appreciate you coming today to share your knowledge with that. Anybody who's watched me do a panel knows that the best information is always from them, so instead of reading bios out, I like to let the panelists tell a little bit about themselves. So if you all would start off maybe a little bit with introducing yourself and a little bit about your summary of your experience, especially what you do in your current positions with that. So Deidre, you are right here. Why don't you
Yeah, I was-
kick us off?
You got this.
I know that. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm thinking it's still morning. That's how time just flies. My name is Anitra McManus, and I am the University Engagement and also our Military Pipeline Development Manager. I'm so excited to be here with you all today. My role consists of overseeing all of our university pipelines as well as our university outreach to make sure that we have the right people in the right place at the right time. As you know, Savannah Riverside is huge, and that's a huge task, but I have a great team behind me, and we try to get the job done, mostly concentrating on our local universities to fill those pipelines so we can have that local talent at the site.
Awesome. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Scott Saul. I'm the owner of Scott Saul State Farm. My office is on the south side. Corey, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, and thank you to USC Aiken, and I mean that in a variety of ways. I'm very happy to be here today, but USC Aiken means something for me because not only did it give me the ability to have a wonderful career, but it also made me the person that I am today. And I mean that both professionally and personally. And professionally, we'll get into that as we move forward, but personally, because I know you guys have all heard the story, you know, you meet the girl, you fall in love, and the rest is history. Well, my bride's right over here, and we met here at USC Aiken, and I joke about it all the time, but it is the truth. They will put me in the ground in Aiken. This is home, and I really love USC Aiken. I love Aiken dearly. Again, just very thankful to be here. But State Farm, you guys know State Farm. You've heard the jargons, the jingles. You've already seen the commercials. You know who we are. We'll get in more of what we do. But thank you for the opportunity.
I'm April Donnelly-Chesser. I'm the Senior HR Manager at Hubble Power Systems here in Aiken. I currently have done, and for the last 25 years, human resources. I've worked for companies Caterpillar, Sleep Number, and 3M, so most people know them, and now moved to the energy sector just to diversify a little bit doing that, but graduating from USC Aiken definitely allowed me to have that possibility to be able to do that. When I left USC Aiken, I had an idea of I was going to go be a nurse and do pharmaceutical sales. Well, that turned a little different way. Now, but human resources is something that most people don't really know about or think about, especially from a liberal arts perspective. But when you look at a business, it doesn't matter what business you walk into, none of the employees would be there without HR. So it's definitely a field that if you can get in the door, and you have to start from the bottom in HR because that's part of the learning process, you can continue to grow your career over time, like Corey said. So thank you for having me.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Joe Francis. Excuse me, I work for Savannah River Mission Completion, which is one of the contracts at Savannah Riverside. I work in continuous improvement. I'm a senior improvement analyst, process improvement analyst, and we'll kind of get into that a little later, as I said. But as Scott said earlier, same deal. I graduated from here in 08. Met my wife here. We've been married for 14 years. We have 4 kids. I've been on site for 17 years, and I wouldn't have rather done it any other way. I learned valuable experience here professionally and personally. And even my being here today, again, I'll get into that a little later, shows how versatile and flexible a degree like liberal arts is and what it can afford you. They initially had someone else pegged to be here today, but she was on vacation and asked, hey, could you step in for me? And even though I'm not in management per se, I work with all the senior leaders. I am involved in the internship hiring process for our particular group. And I just know a lot of the nuances that comes along with this degree. I'm a living example of how you can move and grow within your profession and earn that extra money over years, like the dean said earlier. So thank you for having me.
All right, I'm Eric Bates, and I did not go to school at USC Aiken, but my daughter does, so maybe that's how I got in. I do have a liberal, it's chemistry liberal arts, if you went to a liberal arts school?
Not.
No? Okay. So I did go to a liberal arts school, but I was a chemistry major. So, but, you know, I've been in working, started out when I was in college for 28 years. My first 20 years I worked in manufacturing. The last job I had was plant manager of the Shaw Industries plant here in Aiken, and and the plant in Thompson. I made a career change, I guess around 40 years old, and now I work for a bank. And I will tell you, bankers' hours are much better than manufacturers' hours. If anybody's looking for work-life balance, not. But I'm the Senior Vice President of Retail and Business Banking for Security Federal. And we've recently engaged with the college with job fairs and things like this. We've got an internship opening, and we've been interviewing candidates. We've actually got an internship here in Aiken and in Augusta. Years ago, the bank had a fellowship program, and we currently have, our director of HR, a couple of our branch managers, and the president of our insurance company were all liberal arts majors at USC Aiken, so from that program. So definitely have a lot of experience working with folks from USC Aiken.
Very good. Well, one of the phrases I think that you hear now is skills-based hiring that employers are doing with that. So I was just wondering if you could spend a little bit of time on what specific skills liberal arts students tend to bring that are most valuable to the workforce. Joe, you're nodding. Why don't you kick us off? You're like, no, not
Good
yet.
old nod, right?
Yeah.
So liberal arts degrees, what you can bring to the table, sense of team. You see a certain confidence with liberal arts majors that you don't necessarily see when you get in certain disciplines of science, or they're well-rounded. They're able to communicate clearly. They just bring a certain kind of energy to the workplace, and you can tell pretty quick on if you're in certain training courses, those people who have the liberal arts degrees versus people who are more technical. We're able, in my humble opinion, with a liberal arts degree, you're able to see things with a wider lens, not get so tripped up on that one particular thing. So just that being well-rounded and thinking outside of the box, those are generally your liberal arts degrees that are able to do that.
Who else wants to jump on that?
I'll go ahead. No, you go ahead. Ladies first. No, you were first. You go ahead.
I would say critical thinking, which is huge for us down at the site. We are very policy driven, and having someone that can come on site and identify those risks before we take the next step and help us have that clear path forward, that's by far one of the skills that is essential to the site. And as he said, that sense of teamwork, being collaborative. We have well over 7,000 employees on site. So being able to work cross-functionally with other groups to get things done, that's always a win-win for us at the site.
I'd like to carry it a step further. Do we have any sociology or psychology majors here?
I mean,
We've got 1, 2, 3,
I had one.
I won.
4. So in my line of work in insurance, obviously it's very people-oriented, relationship building. Whenever you go to shop for auto insurance, homeowners insurance, life insurance, whatever type of insurance, for the most part, you can do a lot of point and click. That's great. You can save a few bucks sometimes, not all the time. The problem lies when, uh-oh, now I have a problem. Who do I call? What do I do, right? So in our business, relationships are very, very important. So I think, I'm just picking on sociology and psychology. I mean, while here, took those courses, and, to me, it's understanding of human behavior and tendencies, and part of that is compassion, empathy, and just being a decent human, And I think those are some of the strengths also that doesn't necessarily come through. I think you mentioned technical. Some of these groups are just too technical. I'm not picking on anybody who's engineering major or anything like that, or even business like we were. But sometimes we do kind of, get zoned in on what the mechanics are instead of really trying to. You've heard the term, maybe you have, maybe you haven't, about understanding. When you listen, you understand with, you listen with the intent to understand, not listen with the intent to reply. There's a big difference in that. So I think that having that compassion and that understanding of human behavior is huge. for liberal arts?
Yeah, along those same lines, I do that every day.
I'm
When
sure
an
you do.
employee walks in, you don't know what they're bringing in or what they have at home that they're also bringing to the workplace. So along those same lines, liberal arts graduates bring in the opportunity to be adaptable. So they complement the technical teams, but they also have to be able to adapt every day because your day could change from the moment you walk in, or it could change in the middle of the night, so.
Good.
Yeah, I think y'all covered it very well.
Let me ask you a little bit deeper on that when you think about some of the roles that you might have in particular positions. Because when we talk about liberal arts and we talk about skills, besides the adaptability, the relationship to team building kinds of things, writing and problem solving come up quite a bit in analysis with that. And I just wondered, in any of your particular positions, where might those show up in some of the positions that you think about in your particular organizations? So,
Yeah, I'll take that. I mean, I think, you know, you said writing, communication, you know, it's in every aspect of banking. Scott mentioned relationships. You know, when we help people with their finances, it's not a transaction. It's a relationship. People, you know, if you work for a bank, you know, we do have technical folks who don't necessarily work in front of customers, but working with customers, working with other teammates, you know, getting to know people, gaining trust, you know, being able to read cues, social cues, are all very important. You know, writing, knowing when, you know, it's not necessarily writing as much as it is knowing when to, you know, send an email or send a memo or pick up the phone and call or send a Teams message or, you know, maybe we just need to sit down and discuss this. And knowing those cues, and I think, you know, that's so important. Communication, relationship building, being a decent human, and contrary to popular belief, you don't have to have a science engineering major to be technically inclined. A lot of people are just, you know, they're just gifted that way. And there's something to be said for earning a degree, no matter what it is. But I just think it's so important. And when you're working in teams, you know, for essays, term papers, you know, if you have social labs, team group projects, you know, learning those dynamics, being able to work within a team, to have a timeline, to have milestones within the timeline, to be able to hit deadlines, all those things you learn in your class exercises, you know, whether it's individual or with groups, and I think, you know, communication, you know, whether it's talking, writing. I think it's like 80% of communication is you have to be face to face because you got to see how people react. You know, what do you see? So don't forget that. It's just so important.
Yeah, I got something I want to add. So to Eric's point, I think that, at least in my opinion, when I interview someone, I may be looking at a resume. I've got 2 folks right now who work for me that I don't even have a resume for. It wasn't necessary. But the point is that you, and only you, are in control of your career. If you think that someone else is going to look after you once you graduate, they're not. Okay? What I mean by that is this: take advantage of internships, take advantage of any opportunity that you can to diversify. To me, it doesn't matter what type of degree you have. What that tells me is one thing. You started something and you completed it. You saw it through, right? And it wasn't a small project. We're talking something that in some cases may take more than 4 or 5 years to complete, right? But for me, I look at it, there's really 2 types of careers. You can either have a type A, which is you come in and you do exactly what's expected of you. Your responsibilities, you fulfill. In other words, and I get real animated too, so I apologize. So if I hit you, I apologize. So if you work within this parameter, if you work within this box, that's fine. This is what you're paid, this is what you're compensated to do, right? That's type A. Here's type B. If you want to get noticed, and if you want to advance your career, if you have bigger ambitions, there's things you want to do, you want to stand out, you got to operate a little bit outside of that realm. So in other words, volunteer, join a team. You know, if there's a special project, raise your hand. Don't be afraid to do that. Trust me, it gets noticed. But those are ways and things that, again, it doesn't matter if you have an engineering degree. A finance degree is what I have. I happen to wind up in insurance, which is finance related. It's great. I enjoy it. I love it. People ask me all the time, do you like what you do? And the answer is no, I do not. I love it. And if I had any other things, I'm going to shut up because I feel like I'm hijacking this thing. If I had any other piece of advice real quick is this. Follow your heart, follow your dream, follow your passion. The money will come. We talk about, I know it's been mentioned a little bit about how the liberal arts, it catches up, right? Your compensation will catch up with other careers, other majors, but follow your heart, follow your passion. It's better to be happy than to be miserable. All right, I'm done. Sorry, Corey.
Anything else, Joe?
So yeah, I can touch on the critical thinking, the writing, and analysis part really quick, I think. So I mentioned earlier, I'm a senior process improvement analyst. Fancy way of saying I'm a part of the continuous improvement team at SRMC. So SRMC, the C in SRMC stands for continuous improvement. And working on site, one of the biggest things you'll always hear when you question someone, why are you doing something this way, or why? We've always done it this way. We've done it this way for 20 years. The person before me did it this way. Those aren't acceptable answers. You have to challenge yourself. So when we host our continuous improvement events, we get a room full of subject matter experts, we call them SMEs, and it's their job to critically think and challenge the norms that are in place so that we can improve. You can't improve or have a continuous improvement culture if you don't challenge what's already there. So you have to get outside of the comfort zone and think outside of the box so you can critically think. When we write, because I facilitate events from, you know, groups of maybe the senior management all the way down to field operators, you have to be able to know your audience. You have to know how to contact people. You have to use your relationships that you've had in the past to be able to talk and communicate effectively. So the email I send to a group of operators will not be the same email that I send to the president of the company, right? You have to know your audience. And then the analysis part, again, that continuous improvement piece, we actually have a section where we do exercises, and we call it, it's the gap analysis. We ask the team to give us what the current state is in a particular process, and then we flip and say, well, if you're king or queen for the day, what is your ideal state of this process? The analysis comes in, what is stopping us in our current day process from operating in that ideal state? Then you have to start looking at stuff like, what are the regulatory requirements? What are procedural requirements? If you're in line with all of that, why not challenge the other stuff that's out there? So you have to critically think, and you have to challenge those norms.
Good. Victor, you good?
Okay.
Well, just when you think about different majors in there, so I know Joe Communication, right, was the major in there, but there's quite a few different majors out at the site. Eric, you've got quite a few, you've had different besides business majors.
Right,
You've
we've
had,
got elementary education majors, we've got early childhood education majors, we've got psychology, we've got an English major, who's a department manager in a very technical job. He's a liberal arts, I believe he's got his degree from here, got the liberal arts degree, but is very introverted and technical. It's found its way to the operations side of the bank. So, yeah, you know, I think, you know, Scott hit on it, but it's doing what you're supposed to do and a little bit more. And don't be afraid to ask questions. And it doesn't take the smartest person in the room to solve a problem. It takes a group of people working together. You know, in my experience, a diverse group of people who come from different backgrounds, who think differently, who see things differently. to come up with the greatest solution, and don't feel like you have to do it all. Because you've got subject matter experts and people who are good at some things and not at others, and when they work together and synergize, it works. And it really, in banking, in manufacturing, it's, engineering is certainly required in some aspects, but liberal arts degrees sometimes can communicate what engineering majors can't communicate. They can think it, but they can't sell it. And so I think there's, we certainly have several, and I work with several in manufacturing as well.
April, I would imagine that's kind of a thing, you've got
Yeah.
a pretty highly technical that you are
Yes.
hiring, but are there ever opportunities sometimes for liberal arts?
Yep, so whenever you go and take your first job, and if you've taken an internship, the first thing you go to is new hire orientation. Every single company has it. That sets off an entire onboarding experience. For most people, that onboarding experience can last from just the first day and they're done, because people do show up to jobs and they leave the next day. Or it could go on for years, because you're always continually learning. But any of the training that you're exposed to, a lot of times it's liberal arts majors, English majors, those type of majors who have wrote. So whenever you're looking at jobs, don't discount a training coordinator, a corporate communications role. All of the communications that are emailed out, or most major companies in manufacturing now, just like SRS probably has an intranet. Those are all corporate communications that write most of those announcements that go out. And it doesn't really matter what kind of field you're going into, just like was alluded to from an engineering perspective. The engineer can help write the best training in the world that's going to teach you how to do the job, but if that training can't be rewrote or reworded or communicated to where it's actually teachable and learnable to every type of learning style, then it won't be successful. So.
Good. By the way, I think it's absolutely, usually we do wait for questions till the end, but if anybody does, as we're talking about a particular topic, have a question, just raise your hand and we'll chat right there. Let's move a little bit to, Scott, you talked about this a little bit, because you were talking about, here's what I look for sometimes in an interview or something, but let's talk a little bit about some of the pros and cons you might notice in liberal arts as they go through the application and interview process. So first of all, maybe what is some of the things that might stand out in an application or an interview for a liberal arts major with that?
I'll take that from an HR perspective.
There you
This is the easy one. Do not take your job description that you're given and copy it onto your resume. Because the first thing I'm going to ask you is, tell me a time and tell me what you did or how that applied to. And a lot of times people just take their job description, they copy it right over and say, here's everything I did. That's what you're responsible for. That's not how you did it. So being able to speak to what is actually on your resume and being able to relate it to the company in which you're applying for. You don't always have to go out there and know what a company does from start to finish, but the little things, the things that are on their company overview page whenever you first open it up, because that's one of the questions that everybody's going to ask. So why do you want to work here? What interests you? And if you don't know, it's not an easy way to answer that. For example, people may say, I want to go and work for Hubble because I like the fact that I have energy and data centers in my house. Great, easy answer from there. But some people may say, I think it's crazy that a company like Hubble is responsible for everything on a power line except for the pole and the wire. So there's things that, easy things you can do to answer that. Huh?
Yeah.
I heard that too.
Yeah, it was
Wasn't just
outside.
us then.
I'll piggyback on that. I think number one, before you apply for a job, or certainly before the interview, do research on the company.
Sure.
And know, what Hubble does and why it's important, and why that resonates with you as a person. Scott mentioned there's two types of employees. I'm going to create some responses here. What employee type do you think we employers are looking for? Type A or type B?
Type B.
Type B, absolutely. We want people who are going to come in and do the job and then some. You know, people who, you know, it's as simple as this. You walk by a piece of trash in the parking lot and you pick it up. You don't walk past it and let somebody else pick it up. You take just a little bit more responsibility. If someone's having a bad day, you know, you be a good teammate. If someone's not there, you try to do a little bit more to help them. If the boss asks for an analysis, you give them what he or she wants, and then you try to take it the next step and look around the corner. So how do you get there? You know, going to college, getting a degree, that fits into type A. But joining some clubs, okay, doing some extracurricular things, could be sports, could be club sports, could be, you know, any of the organizations that you have here on campus. You know, be a leader in those organizations. See what it's like to be a leader, and how that dynamic works. You know, dress nicely, get a resume, and show up to the job fairs when you're a freshman or a sophomore. Get some type of internship, whether it's paid or not paid, on your resume, because what that says is I'm not only with the college, but I'm going the extra mile. I'm joining clubs. I'm getting to know people. I'm building my network. You know, nothing against working in an ice cream shop, but you know, if I'm a psychology major, I'm working with Helping Hands, you know, for 2 hours a day on the weekends, you know, with some of the kids there. And so that, you know, when a resume comes across like that, it looks good. But the other thing is when we ask questions in a resume, you know, we want people to be confident, but we want people to be competent. And how do you come across as competent? You talk about the specific things you did. Tell me about a time when I go above and beyond. The answer is not, that's just how I am. You know, I work hard. I do my best. I give 110%. Next question. The answer is, well, I'll tell you about a time I went above and beyond, and explain it, and talk about the specific results. So, you know, I just think that those are, from the experiences, you know, in my career, those are very, very important. And if I had to dial it back, I did some of those things, not by trying to do it. I just, like when I was in college, I worked at Milliken. Worked there for 2 years in the summers. And, you know, I really didn't even, I had to apply, but that got me that job. I didn't have to work that hard to get that job. So I just encourage y'all to do what you're here to do, but do a little bit more and stand out.
I'd add to that as well. I think a lot of times individuals with liberal arts degrees, they see certain job postings and they're intimidated by it. Maybe they feel they don't have the skill set. Really, when you're applying for jobs, you really need to do your homework, as has been said already, but understand what those preferred qualifications are and the requirements are, and be able to use your real life experiences, like what was just stated, to relate and have those examples on hand. A lot of times what you'll find is the technical aspect in a lot of jobs may not be specifically what they're looking for. You may just need to be able to lead people. I don't want to say just be able to, but they may be looking for someone who can lead people, who can keep people engaged. Especially in certain or entry-level management positions, you may not be required or be asked to be the expert, but you need to know who to call or how to engage the expert so that they can help with the problem. So I would just say, don't sell yourself short. Really dig and do the research when you see a job posting, and be able to relate it to what you're doing. Like she said, I'm sorry, what was your name again? I'm sorry. April? Like April said, don't copy the qualifications and requirements and dump them into your resume. But understand how your experiences relate and tie into those qualifications they're asking for. Because you can be super qualified for a job, but I know, at least on the SRMC side, we have an automated system. So if it doesn't hit on certain words, then it's going to kick your resume out. But the moment of truth is going to be, if you do get that interview, can you speak to those things that you included in your resume? So don't sell yourself short, and don't think just because something has a title that it's super technical. They may be looking for someone who knows how to work well with a team.
One more thing I'll add, if there's ever an interview training class, I know it sounds silly, even if you're great at talking to people, don't have a problem, super extrovert, still go to one of those interview training classes, because it's very different when you're sitting across the table and there's something that you have to gain on the other side. So don't be embarrassed or shy away from it. And even if you don't go to one of those, then simply have your friend ask you interview questions, or have ChatGPT ask you interview questions. Say, hey, what type of jobs or what type of questions would I be asked along with this job? And kind of think about that based on your work experience.
And Corey, just to piggyback on what he said about being intimidated by job descriptions, that's what I often see in a lot of liberal arts resumes. But the thing that I need you to understand when you are writing your resume, we're looking at how you think, what you've done, and what value you bring to what it is that you've done. Well, what was the result of that? It's oftentimes it's not about your capability, it's all about how you translate it. So make sure that whenever you see a job description, as he said, align it to what it is that you've already done, and then and make sure that it aligns with the job. That's what it's all about. Don't let the job title, intimidate you from applying, because you have the capability. It's just all about translation.
Well, I'm the only one who has to say anything on this, so I'm going to say something.
You said you were done, aren't you?
No, we got time. So, everything that has been said, it all makes sense, at least to me. And I'm going to sum it up by saying this. I said it earlier. No one is going to look after you in your career other than yourself, right? So whether you want to believe it or not, everybody, you are your best salesperson. And I will tell you this based off of my own experience, but based off of just real world experience, and it just came out of their mouths, but it didn't come out the way that I'm going to say it. Whether you want to be or not, you're in sales. You're always going to be selling yourself. You're always going to be marketing yourself, right? Because you may be with Hubble, right? You may be with Hubble for 15 years. An opportunity opens up at the site.
Come
Right? What have you got to do, though? What have you got to do? You got to market. You got to sell yourself. All right. So that's my point. Is that don't be afraid, to beat your chest, to toot your own horn, but do it in a very professional manner, but also do it in a factual manner. Resume. AI can generate a resume. I just said that I have 2 employees right now. I don't even have a resume for them. Reason being is because we sat down. I knew who they were. I knew about their background. I knew their history. I knew their work ethic. To me, that the character says a lot, okay? Because you can throw up on a piece of paper, man, you can look like the greatest thing in the world. But after I sit down with you and start probing, start asking questions, and then especially if you show up to an interview, right, and you're unprepared, you don't know anything about, in my case, you don't know anything about State Farm, you don't know anything about insurance, you don't know anything about my company, you don't know anything about me. It's not that hard. You can find this information. At least come up with a few questions, right? But to me, that just shows you're not interested. You're not serious about this. So that's the reason why I say sell yourself. But you'll be doing this the rest of your life. You always will be.
So I think the next question I was going to ask, I think we've got through a little bit, but let's just see if there's anything else out there. I was going to ask, are there some common mistakes that you maybe you see liberal arts graduates make? You made a good point about not being prepared for the interview at all. And you made the point of not dumping just the job description into the resume. Anything else anybody want to highlight?
I'm going to jump on this one first before everybody else does. Yes, it is real simple, lack of confidence. But that gets back into selling yourself. It gets back into being prepared, making sure you're ready. Just make sure that you prepare, you do the things that you know that you feel confident going into an interview, or if you're applying for a position, you feel confident, hey, I can handle this. I see that quite a bit. People will crumble right in front of you when you push them a little too hard. And it's not that you're trying to break them, it's just that there's going to be pressure with any position, any career you choose. So just make sure you're prepared to do that. Now I'll carry it a step further. So a lot of history with USC Aiken and myself and our family, but Corey actually, through an internship opportunity, We interviewed this young lady. She actually took the internship. She was surprised that it was a paid internship. You know, she was expecting it not to even be paid. But she was with us for, a while, and she moved on. She got a better opportunity with another insurance company out of Columbia. But, yeah, I mean, it's just lack of confidence. Don't short sell yourself, I guess is my point. You prepared for this. You put the time in. You may be working 2 different jobs, so just apply those skills to what it is your goal is, what you're trying to accomplish.
I'll add on, don't be afraid of the industry. Like I work in manufacturing and somebody left us the wonderful world of manufacturing, which I totally understand. But don't be afraid of the industry. I'll tell you a story quickly. My stepson, he went to a job fair right as he was graduating from college, and he calls and he's super excited about, with the company. He's like, Dad, they have all these great benefits, da 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 da. And it's like, okay, son, where? Where are you going? It was Waffle House. And whenever you think of Waffle House, all you're thinking about is 2 a.m., right? And those waffles. So don't be afraid to look at different companies, different organizations. He ended up working there, going into a regional management role and managing 30 or something stores. So it was a kickstart to his career right out of college. But when he walked in that job fair, do you think people were lined up to go talk to the Waffle House rep? Probably not. Nope. So don't be afraid of the stigma associated where you're going to go and what you're going to do, because they may have a job that nobody else wants, but it's the right career for you at that time.
That's a good point.
And I would just add, there's a lot, yes, you have to have the skill set, yes, you need to be qualified, but there's a lot of emphasis, whether people will tell you or not, just on how you carry yourself, how you dress for the interview, how you interact with the interviewee, whether it's an interviewer, whether it's a panel or one person. Manners still carry a long way. Yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am. I know it sounds silly sometimes to some people, or, shirt and tie for young men. I know it's 2026, but you want to put your best foot forward, because that may be your only interaction with them before they make their decision. So you want to make sure you leave it all out on the floor.
All right, I got to say something else. I'm sorry, guys. So I just shared it with Corey. You're starting to laugh. You know exactly what I'm about to say. So he's right. It's Joe, right?
Yes, sir.
Joe's absolutely right. First impressions matter, okay? I see this gentleman over here. I love to pick on people. I'll call people out in a heartbeat. I could care less. But with Braves hat on, promise you, that's how I was dressed prior to walking in here. That's how I dress normally. But 2 things. Number 1 is, who is it, Steve Jobs? Or who was it? Elon? Somebody said it. I've earned the right, okay? It's my company. I'll dress how I want. But at the same time, I knew coming in here, probably didn't need to wear a coat and tie, but I needed to dress appropriately, right? I wanted to look a little more professional than the Jimmy Buffett of insurance. So it means something though, how you present yourself. It gets back to selling yourself. Those first impressions really, really matter.
This might be a tougher question. When you think about a liberal arts grad early on, is there anything that maybe they would need additional development, or that they should do, or should they add something to when they think about how do I make myself a little bit more employable in there? Any thoughts on that?
Like in a career, after they've been hired?
Well, let's do both. Maybe in the preparation of that, or is there something after?
Yeah, I'll do a little bit before and after. I mean, what everyone said about, if you lack this, you're going to struggle with confidence. Not having internships, not preparing. But the one thing you could do, I think confidence is a very difficult thing, especially if you're 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 years old, sitting in an interview across from sometimes 2, 3, 4 people. That can scare anybody off. It would have scared me off. So it's easy to say have confidence, but how do you get that? I mean, does anybody know? Like, does anybody play sports in here? Like for fun? Anybody play in high school? So how do you gain confidence? What sport did you play?
Experience. I played football and track and field.
So so for football, how do you gain confidence in the positions you played?
Constant practice, keep doing it over and over again.
Right, practice. So, how do you gain confidence when you're in an interview? You got to practice. And it really doesn't matter, nowadays you've got this cool tool called, it could be Google, we can just call it AI. You can actually practice an interview with AI. I'd encourage you to engage the Career Center to see if there's opportunities. I'm sure Corey would sit down with you or one of his staff. Hey, let's do a mock interview. I need some practice. And when you go into the interview, you know, those specific things that you did above and beyond, maybe an example where you had a project and you didn't think you could get it done, but you organized, you prioritized, you worked with a team, you got it done. Have 3 or 4 of those written down. Because 9 times out of 10, if someone asks you a question, you can respond, you can frame your response with one of those answers. Be prepared. How do you have confidence? You got to practice. Don't go into an interview cold. It's my second interview I've ever done. You know, don't really. I wouldn't expect to have confidence. Very few of us would have confidence if we didn't practice and prepare. So I would say that practice, prepare, prepare. You know, do research, all the above, but get yourself feeling good about you know your interview skills. And then once you start, one thing I learned the hard way. You know, I've got it here, and I guess I'm old school. I've got a Stephen Covey 7 Habits planner, and I write stuff down. This is what I have to do today. I'll start if it's important. But one thing I never started was take time out of the day to build relationships with your teammates. If you're a manager, build relationships with the people who work for you, and be very have some strong intent to go interact with people, get to know them, so they know you. Build trust, and make that a priority when you start, because the relationships you build, especially early on, you will carry them with you for the rest of your career. Not all of them, but the good ones you will. So be intentful, and be, I don't think that's the right word, but intentional, that's what I'm trying to say. Be intentional about that, and make that a big priority.
How about, what do you see about potential employers when they come into the interview and having like good questions for you at the end of the interview?
Sure, yeah, I think that was mentioned, but you know, part of interview preparation is practice interviewing. You know, study the company, develop questions about the company, study the job, develop questions about the job. Yeah, that's part of it.
Most of the time you're going to be interviewing with your boss, and they're probably going to give you the most real answer you'll get at the end of the interview when you ask that question, what's expected of me in the next 90 days. You may not get that opportunity to be that frank or hear from them exactly what they want, but I always ask that question, even when I interviewed for this job 9 months ago. That's the most clear you're going to get to know they expect this, this, and this, and then I walk in the door day one knowing what I have to get to go to and what they're expecting.
So I would say, for one, that's a great question. I actually just interviewed our summer, well, not just, about a couple months ago, I interviewed our summer intern, who's a student here at USCA. And what moved him, he was one of the top 3 finalists. He asked questions at the end. Nobody else, I think a couple questions were, is it an opportunity for a permanent job after the internship is up? But he asked things like, what can I do to get adapted to the culture out there? Is there a certain way that you guys expect me to dress? So for an undergraduate to have those questions during an internship interview, that really stood out. And those questions, everybody was qualified, right? But just those questions gave him a little bit more up on the other people, not interviewed, but applied for the position and interviewed as well.
I'd like to add something to it, because I think part of your question too was, any other suggestions as far as, how can you make yourself stand apart, right? So how many, quick show of hands, how many people are graduating like very soon? Seniors. Okay, how many are, say, sophomores? So not many. Okay, so where I'm going with this is that if you have time, maybe consider minoring in something else as well. Maybe business. I think that those two coupled together does make you stand apart, and plus it helps you with an interview, It just gives you more to draw from versus just, this is what I have. Case in point, I'll throw myself on the sword. I was a finance major. So I thought, hey, this is the only angle that I can go into is the finance industry. And that wasn't the case at all. You know, I found the journey to be like yours. You know, you wind up doing this, eventually you make it over here. You know? So it's very fluid. Don't be afraid of change. One thing we encourage our kids to do, our kids are all grown adults and everything, but we've always encouraged them to always be in a position of strength. You understand what I'm saying by that? So make sure you're prepared financially. Don't be afraid to make a move. If a change presents itself, don't be afraid of it. You know, I'll say this, I'm going to shut up about it, is in life, opportunity comes at the most inopportune time. Does that make sense? So just when you least expect it, this phenomenal job may open up, the opportunity may be there, but you may be a little hesitant to take that opportunity. But make sure you're in a position of strength, and hey, look, if the opportunity's there, and I want to go after it, I stand apart, you know, based off of my experience, my education, and the things that I know I can bring to that position. So don't be afraid to take that chance in life. You might be surprised.
Can I say something really quick?
So I wanted to answer the question you asked, but I answered this young man's question. Really quick, I just wanted to say, so if you're still in school, even if you're a senior, enjoy your remaining time in school, because it'll never be another time like it. So enjoy it, all right? But also, start planning and mapping out where you think you want to be. Where do you want to be 5 years from now? Where do you want to be 10 years from now? It's never too early to start doing that. Then you can logically start working towards those things. Find an example. Find somebody who's successful in a field that you're interested in. Use them as a template. You don't have to use them as the example, but use them as a template to kind of figure out how you need to navigate through. I can't stress enough, and it's been said several times, relationships to me is the most important thing. Time and relationships rule the world, in my opinion. Mentorships. Once you find that person that you look up to or that's successful, reach out. See if they're willing to give you advice. See if they can recommend somebody else if they're too busy. Use your network and your relationships to be able to build yourself and learn from people who've already been there. So when you start, you're not starting from square one, right? You can be a couple steps ahead of the game. Use mentorships, use mentorships, use mentorships, all right? And map out how you see yourself in the future. That stuff really helps out.
I do want to answer your initial question of the skill that you should really have is be comfortable in the Microsoft Office suite. I know you do presentations, but I guarantee you, every single one of us up here, we have clicked on Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook or Teams every day. So I have adults every day who are taking advantage of the continuing education classes because they're going back to school to relearn Excel in order to help promote them. So learn Excel, Power BI, forwards, backwards, upside down, at least be able to be intermittently comfortable in what you're doing, pivot tables, those type of things, because you're going to use it and you're going to be in it every day, regardless of what role you honestly go into.
Absolutely.
All right, we're coming in on our hour. I was gonna say, so questions are where we're at if we want to get a few. And
Is it Sam?
Steve.
Steve, the Jimmy Buffett.
Steve?
Steve.
You can call me whatever.
Oh, okay.
It's Scott.
I like what you
Most
said.
Sam's, it doesn't.
I like what you said about making sure that you're coming from this place of strength. And then I think there's some comments that other folks made that made me think about the importance of adaptability. And I was wondering if that's one of the strengths that you sometimes see in the people who graduate with liberal arts degrees, like communication and sociology, the Spanish, the languages. Is that one of the skills that you really see stands out among those liberal arts graduates, that they tend to be good when it comes to adapting to changing situations?
I think so. I think that we talked about this a little bit. Each of us have, that whole technical aspect that some people is just inbred in them. I'm just, oh my God, mechanically. I gotta understand how this pen operates. But I do think that, at least in my business, that adaptability probably carries forward into banking, into manufacturing, into whatever goes on at the site. But I think that adaptability is critical because that goes across any career, right? But I do think, liberal arts students tend to have that more creative mind. They do think outside of, just how does this work? They're thinking, well, gosh, I understand how it works now what can I do with it? They try to carry it a step further. So I just encourage, always be thinking outside of the box, always.
And to add, even with that adaptability, that motivation and that intention, you have to want something, you have to go the extra mile in order to get something. What differentiates you from someone else? You have to have that strategic and that employee, that value that shows that you're not thinking operationally, but you're thinking strategically. So always think that way, always have that intention, because as he said, you're the only one that's in control of your career.
So really quick, I'm going to talk from the employee standpoint, which you guys will be able to relate to. So really fast. So when I graduated, actually my senior year, I worked at Foxy 1031 in North Augusta. Was an on-air personality, didn't pay enough. Started working security, that didn't pay enough. Finally got an offer at Savannah Riverside. I started as a production operator. No experience whatsoever, but because I had a degree, it said I had a willingness to learn. I was a production operator for a while. Then I went into the control room, did control room operations. Not qualified, on paper, not qualified whatsoever, but that willingness to learn. Okay, now I was tired of working shift work, so I need to do something else. Got into work planning and control. Operators never did work planning and control at that point, but because of the knowledge that you showcase, that you have of the plant in your degree, they said, well, you know what, you could be a good fit for this. All the way now to me doing continuous improvement, which, field operators don't tend to move in that direction. So that flexibility and that willingness to continue to learn, they've said it a few times, something comes up, if it's feasible for you to work it into your schedule, I'll do that. I don't mind helping with that. I'll run this subcommittee, or I'll be on this voluntary safety deal. Anything you can do that makes you stand out. If it doesn't kill you, you got to do it, and that's the way. That's the way that you work up, move your way up. And also, a couple of things that you guys can get certifications. Project management is a big deal on site. Most times, or if not all, it'll be covered. If you haven't gotten it yet, you can get reimbursed for it. In my world, Lean Six Sigma qualifications, if you're familiar with like black belt, white belt, black belt, blue, all the different belts, yellow belt, and you can look online. A lot of places, if you're in state, will offer that for free over some course of time. So those are definitely things that I know that we look for in my line of work.
Other questions? Yes.
You talked, I remember earlier you talked about like the opportunities for the benefits of sociology and psychology. What would you say would be some benefits and opportunities for writing majors?
Marketing, communication, and even like in HR, nobody's going to make those pretty flyers on that bulletin board, but HR, more than likely, or a plant admin or something like that. So whenever you do that, like I said earlier, the training and development piece, somebody has to write all of those PowerPoints. They don't just magically appear. Even AI will try to tell you they appear. They don't always appear that way. So, the writing piece can go so far. And, like he spoke to earlier, just that ability to communicate clearly goes a long way.
I know down at the site, procedure writing is huge for us. Being able to properly write a procedure, project controls, program management, all those things that will have you to report out to leadership. Any of those roles would work well for someone.
Yeah, like a compliance type of role.
Yep.
Work planning and control. They have to write work instructions for the maintenance mechanics to work to. You would imagine that stuff needs to be written clearly so that people can follow it. And of course, all of your stuff that, you have to think a little outside the box, but things that are not necessarily in the field but on the business side, at some point it has to be communicated, right? And it has to be delivered to somebody. You have to give presentations. That's where that writing background can really come into play.
And also training, because we're huge on training.
Absolutely. I think also, and this is Sam's, Steve, whatever else you want to call it, but I think also other manufacturing types of things, like in manufacturing, like Club Car, for example. Was a Columbia Vehicle Group that went into the old feedline place. Any place that manufactures, I'll call it a widget, right? They have to market this widget. there are technical documents tied to this widget. How do you use this widget, right? So any type of writing, any type of experience, there's always a demand for that. I mean, they've touched on all this, but I'm just telling you to expand that search. Don't be afraid to, like you said, the whole Waffle House is great. Don't have that stigma that, hey, you know, Club Car or Easy Go, I'm picking on those two because they come to mind. John Deere over in Grovetown. I mean, just places that make things, right? There's lots of opportunities for that background. Absolutely.
Have you got time for one more if we got one, or does that wrap up questions for? Very good. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming. I want, if I was to summarize this, there's a lot about preparation there, as we talked about internships, interviewing, all those kinds of things in the prep part. So think about where you are in your plan as far as preparing. And then I heard a lot about specifically matching yourself to skills. I loved it because we preach that every day, is the fact that you've got a skill set, they want a skill set. Match that skill set with the specific examples that you have that match what they're looking for. That's always the goal of that. So if you take a moment, please give our panelists a hand and say thank you.